Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another episode of Bound to Talk Football. I'm Blake Walker. He's Paul Eridge. Good to see everyone back on this Monday. This will be released on a Monday evening, Monday afternoon, probably just right after we finish this. It's Monday afternoon here. Paul, we are through the semifinals and we are on to the championships this Thursday and Friday up at Cedar Falls in the Unidome. Fun week of football last week. You and I did not make it down to the Unidome, but we both watched it a lot online. Did you catch every game? Did you miss a couple? How was the
Let's say I
experience?
tuned in to every game. I just didn't watch every game like thoroughly. So
Yeah, nice.
Mhm.
All of it was courtesy of the Iowa High School Sports Network. Made a couple of changes, scoreboard graphical changes this year. You love to see it. Plenty of sponsors galore. Noticeable, but coverage nonetheless, and we'll take it. So thanks to them for doing what they've done. We're going to jump into the action that we saw. We got title games set and everything else, and we'll just jump right in, kind of give our thoughts. I guess we could rehash our predictions at the beginning will stay the same that we made, like on the post that we put, that's going to be the same. But I might have a change for like one of mine, but I'm not going to go back and change it. I'm just saying my thought process has changed after watching one of the teams. We'll start out with an 8-player poll where the 1 seed goes down. Bishop Garrigan defeats Winfield Mount Union 34-20. This was the first game of the day, and it didn't disappoint. Winfield Mount Union gets up 20-6 and cannot recover. Bishop Garrigan comes all the way back. Caden Rothler, 181 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. He also had 7 tackles, 1 for loss. That was a sack. I mean, the thing that a lot of people, and you and I were talking about before we got on the air here, people don't realize how big Bishop Garrigan is. Like, they're a big football 8-player school. And that was very apparent on Wednesday when they took the field. Their sideline was much bigger. They had a lot more depth. And after the third quarter, Winfield Mount Union just didn't have much left in the tank.
Yep, I mean it's clear in the rushing totals this game. Bishop Garrigan, 270 yards on 50 attempts and 5.4 yards per carry, throwing 4 rushing touchdowns there as well. Winfield Mount Union only a total 10 rushing yards this game and 0.5 yards a carry. Yet they were trailing kind of by the end of the game, and it kind of became a passing situation, but that's not going to get it done in a ground and pound game. And yeah, Bishop Garrigan's huge. Like, they've got a huge team. Just players are huge. They're kind of underrated, honestly, throughout the entire year.
It's amazing that they've lost games, honestly. Like, you watch them and you're like, dang, they've been pressed. And you put the post out too. Their turnaround has been unbelievable. What'd they go 2-7 last year or 2-6,
3-5,
3-5, something like that. So, I mean, they've really turned it around. It's been impressive. Jake Edwards goes 13 of 20, just could not get anything rolling. Cam Buffington goes 13 carries, technically 36 yards, but a lot of that was negative thanks to sacks and whatnot. He goes for 2 touchdowns early, but then he got hurt like about midway through the third and just never came back. He never got back into the game. It's an unfortunate end of the career for Cam Buffington and a Winfield Mount Union team that everything seemed to be put together, but they just run into a buzzsaw at the end. And, you know, that's Jake Edwards comes back next year. That's a big positive for Winfield Mount Union, but they lose Cam Buffington. They lose Abram Edwards. So, you know, they're going to have to fix up a couple things here before the new year. But nonetheless, a dome spot's a dome spot.
Yep. Yeah, good season for them. Obviously, it doesn't end the way they want it to, though. So
it's crazy. Winfield Mount Union had 60 total tackles. Bishop Garrigan only had 38. It's funny how statistics work out like that. So Bishop Garrigan moves on to the title game. They face Bedford, who defeats Gladbrook Rhinebeck 31-30. We knew Bedford was good. We knew that this was a team that you couldn't mess with and that they were going to be a difficult team to get past. But the resiliency, scoring 15 here late in the fourth quarter to come back, and then a game-winning field goal by a kid who's never kicked a field goal in his life, wins the game for Bedford.
Yeah, the ice in the veins there is crazy. It's an 8-man game too, so I know field goals are like just don't
unheard
happen.
of. Yeah,
it just doesn't happen. So phenomenal way to end that game. Garrison Motzinger, big game, 143 yards, along with and Connor Nally had 2 touchdowns and a pick, and a fumble recovery. So Connor Nally had a great game. This was, I think, easily one of the best games of the semis. Like, that was crazy ending. Sucks for Gladbrook. They had a good year. Honestly, I was this is my pick to win it all. Gladbrook. I thought they were going to come out and win it. It was just a crazy fourth quarter that kind of nipped them. So
it was Case Coleman, the sophomore, who was the one that kicked the game-winning field goal on bound. There is no stats for Gladbrook Rhinebeck, and I can't go out of the screen here or else it'll mess up the stream. But Gladbrook Rhinebeck stats are on the association's page if you want to go look at that. I know Isaac Clark really gave it all he had. There were only 3 seniors on this Gladbrook Rhinebeck team, so they will be back. I think they just met a very good team in Bedford, who literally is just last year's Waco, like almost an perfect identical look to what Waco was last year. They're going on a great run. They're big. I mean, they like to ground and pound and run the ball. So I think I'm very happy for Bedford. I think it was a phenomenal win for them and a dramatic win nonetheless.
Yep.
So it sets up Bishop Garrigan at 11-1, taking on Bedford at 12-2. Bishop Garrigan, if you look on the website, is not ranked because they weren't ranked coming into the postseason. The broadcasters made a very big point in that, and I'm like, yeah, but they're still pretty good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what do you think, Paul? I mean, this is going to be a very heavy ground and pound game. We're not going to see a lot of passing. If we do see passing, I think it obviously favors Bishop Garrigan. And I love that the run Bedford has been on. I think it's phenomenal. Garrigan's just huge. I mean, Garrigan is huge, and their depth is almost hard to beat.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, every time I say this, I feel like it nips me in the butt, but I feel like it'll be semi-low scoring because both teams just pound the rock. It'll be interesting because Bedford's got more of that triple option style offense, while Bishop Garrigan's got that kind of Iowa way, would you say? Kind of like they don't do like they still keep it like a normal looking offense. They don't do like it's not a spread though. I'm trying to come up with a word for it, but I like Bishop. I've said it before in the preview. The teams that have to play the hardest road to get there, usually the one that comes out is the one that's going to win it all. And I've seen that plenty of times in 5A, and it looks like it's going to potentially happen here. I mean, Cam? They had to play, and then they played Remsen.
Yeah, beat Remsen, beat Cam, then beat Winfield Mount Union. So they've gone through the gauntlet. So I mean, they've proven that they belong. I got to roll with Bishop Garrigan. Early start here, 9:30 in the morning start for the 8-player title game. They have to start it a little bit earlier because at 1 o'clock is the Class A title game, and they have to get everything moved off the field. So they're hoping for no long game, or else everything's going to be shoved back. But nonetheless, should be a great one. Hoping the best for both teams. Both teams looking for their first ever 8-player titles. Obviously, Bishop Garrigan has won a title in a higher class. Bedford has never won a football title ever. So lots to look forward to in your Class A title game between Bishop Garrigan and Bedford. Excuse me. We'll go to Class A, where West Hancock takes care of Madrid. 39-14 is your final score. Mitchell Smith and Kale Zool. Really, Kale Zool was the big player in this one. 23 carries, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. At the end of the day, Paul, it was West Hancock was bigger, and they're scrappier, and they have a little bit more to work with. Madrid had Preston Wicker, and they just could not get a stop on defense.
Yeah, I mean, 5.2 yards a carry versus West Hancock, or versus Madrid for West Hancock. That was huge. They're averaging 5 yards a play, 300 total yards of offense. Yeah, it was just easy game for West Hancock. Honestly, they pounded it like they normally do. Madrid, yeah, it just looked like kind of strength here. Like, just West Hancock was bigger in that. And we always have talked about how West Hancock, once they get in that dome, they just seem to take care of business every time. Especially, I mean, they just run it down your throat. And Kellen Smith had a nice day, and then Mitchell Smith had another great day in the dome. Like, it's kind of clockwork for them. So, and the only way they lost last year, they played a team that's moved up. So,
yeah, and I just feel like I was so happy that all the people were starting to see. So Wes Hancock, I think you and I have talked about Wes Hancock's jerseys. Everybody, that was like a talking point. Everyone's like, why are their jerseys like so torn and ragged? It's like, that's what makes it cool. Like, it just looks like they literally haven't changed jerseys all year, or maybe in the last 5 years. That's just what makes it cool. I mean, you know what they're going to do. You know how they're going to play you. And it just makes things really interesting to watch.
Yeah. I've just been out on that. I think they need to get some new unis, dude.
Maybe one day they'll upgrade, but I love the old ragged look. I think
What were the favorite jerseys?
Of the ones that I saw all week, probably. Oh gosh, I don't know.
Going Williamsburg.
I was gonna say Williamsburg. I do like theirs. I mean, Garrigan's. They were pretty standard. Bedford's just has the all blue helmets.
Mm-hmm.
Grundy Center normal. Van Meter normal. Marmac. I do love the train rail or the railroad track over MFL Marmac's helmet. I might go with. I've always liked Solon's look. I like the black with the orange accent and the white helmet, so I'll go with that one. But no, there's a lot of good unis. Western Dubuque had really good uniforms. North Polk, Ankeny's all golds. You know how I feel about the all golds. The other Class A game, Woodbury Central hangs on against East Buchanan, 28-20. Pretty even game all throughout. Woodbury Central pulls away late with 14 unanswered in the third and wins 28-0. Drew Kluender, 10 of 15, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, 53 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Eric McGill, 4 catches, 76 yards. Zach Butler, 19 carries, 101 yards. Shout out Hunter Bowers, who had a heck of a day. 20 yards receiving, 160 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. At the end, it was just Woodbury Central had a little bit more of a passing game, and that really seemed to be the big difference maker in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Big thing here that I like for Woodbury Central is they're playing like a photocopy this next game to state champ. They're playing the same offense of triple option. Obviously, there's probably a lot of wrinkles in there and a lot of differences, but they've played a team that just runs the ball, and that's their thing, and they're going to win by running the ball. So I think that's huge for them. I mean, it's nice to just see a quarterback is winning at the Dome like this in the low class, because usually, I mean, it's just a dominant run game or a dominant defense that's kind of getting it done. So obviously, we saw Cooper DeJean not too long ago do it. So, I'm excited to see Woodbury Central in the Dome. I thought Klunder played an amazing game. The one pick was just kind of the only error where he kind of just sailed one not sailed one, but threw like a slant or curl or something, and it was just jumped by East Buchanan. But they held on, and he drove them right back down and scored a touchdown. So
the Class A title,
that was a little weird. The East Buchanan went for like a 2-point conversion to take the lead when they scored. It was like 20.
Oh, 20 yeah.
I was like, wow.
You got to try a couple things, I guess.
Yeah, but it was just.
Yeah, you just never know if it'll come back. But no, it's going to be a fun one. Class A at 1 o'clock. West Hancock, number 3 West Hancock in the rankings, 11-1, takes on number 2 Woodbury Central. Paul, you hit it on the head. 2 teams that are, they are good. They've been here before. Woodbury Central plays a team that's very similar to what they've played. I think back to that Woodbury Central playoff game. They were a couple, maybe inches or a call away from going to overtime with MMCRU, and now they're here at the Dome and they're in the state title game. I think that game really woke them up. So I think it's going to be a great game. Keep an eye out for that one at 1 o'clock in the Class A category. 1A is the next one. So 1A technically moves up a day. They played on Friday last week, but they'll play on Thursday this week. MFL Marmac defeats Underwood in probably the shocker of the tournament, I'd say. Maybe close to it. Underwood.
Williamsburg Solon being like a blowout.
Yeah, I guess that would be another one. But MFL Marmac defeats Underwood, handing them their second loss of the year, the only other one being Van Meter. Carver Blitzen Bentien, the quarterback, didn't really have to do much. It was Quinn McHugh, the junior, 161 yards and 5 touchdowns. And what's really crazy, Paul, is that their original running back, which was it Rice or was it Wyatt? Was it Wyatt that broke his arm?
I'm not 100% sure. I'll double check real quick.
I think it was Wyatt that broke his arm
Wyatt Powell.
because, yeah.
Yeah, it's Wyatt Powell.
So Wyatt was getting rolling early and then takes a really awkward land on his arm, goes to the sidelines, does not come in the rest of the game, and has a sling in his arm or an arm in his sling. So I fear that he might not be coming back. But shout out to the junior, Quinn McYow. 27 carries, 161 yards, and 5 touchdowns. That's called stepping up in the big moment against an Underwood team who, I didn't put it lightly, was heavily favored in this game.
Yeah. No, this Underwood team has been a dominant all year. They haven't even showed a single blip. Their blip is against Van Meter, who is just coasting into the championship right now in 2A. It's it was a shocker. I didn't believe it. They got 400 rushing yards put up on them at almost 7 yards a carry, 5 rushing touchdowns put on him. I was pretty shocked. I thought Garrett, he played good for a sophomore. 3 touchdowns, threw 2 picks, which, he's young. That's going to happen. But, this was the shocker of the tournament. I think you hit it on the head there.
He loses a lot of his weapons. Maddox Nelson's career is now done, along with Mason Boothby, who had a heck of a game. 5 catches, 183 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But a heck of a win for MFL Marmac. The Bulldogs have just proved to just keep pushing through. They're a tough team. They're going to grind out a win, and they get a big one here over Underwood. Grundy Center takes care of business against Columbus Catholic, 42-7. The Gatorade Player of the Year type of Colin Gordon came out to play. 17 of 20, 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, 71 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. Paul, Grundy Center is getting hot at the worst possible time for every other team because this is what Grundy Center should look like.
Yeah, this is dominant. This wasn't even a thought. The last time these 2 teams played is 21-14. And they doubled their points that game and then took away 7 from Columbus Catholic. So this team is just looking like a buzzsaw. It's MFL. They just are coming off a huge momentum win, but this is going to be very tough for them. This Grundy Center team's balanced. 17 for 20 passing is ridiculous at a high school level. Throwing 5.8 yards per carry and 227 yards on the ground for Grundy Center. 5 TFLs and 2 sacks, 2 interceptions. They did it like everyone did it. It was a team just everyone played good. So it's going to be very tough. I know Columbus Catholic had 2 losses, and they played Sumner Fredericksburg, who didn't have a quarterback. So there was a little bit of are they really, are they on Grundy's level? But
I will say it was pretty cool. Ty Schmidt of the Pat McAfee Show graduated, I believe, from Waterloo Columbus Catholic and went to the University of Iowa. He's on the Pat McAfee Show on Thursday when that game was played, or Friday, whenever it was played. On the Pat McAfee Show in Georgia for College Game Day, he was wearing their playoff shirt, Waterloo Columbus Catholic playoff shirt. So Columbus Catholic got their name out there on ESPN. So that was really cool to see. Shout out Ty Schmidt. Shout out the Pat McAfee Show. Really cool stuff. So you get Grundy Center and MFL Marmac. Paul, quick thoughts on this one. 2 teams that are rolling, but Grundy Center's just held a really good offense to 7 points. Granted, they're a different offense. They had a very good quarterback. I think we see some points in this one here. I'm going to hold with my Grundy Center pick, but I'm very intrigued for this game.
Yeah, I'm very. I give it like a 3.5 spread, which I know spreads are. But yeah, I think it'll be a close game, but I think that Grundy Center comes away with it because Colin Gordon. That team hasn't lost.
No,
in a long. No.
Their closest game was that 7-6 game to start the season when I was like, whoa.
Absolute mess of a game.
Yeah, that game was not pretty. But then, so that's twice that they have beat a team close the first time and then blew them out the second time. Dyke New Hartford and Columbus Catholic, back to back, pretty much. So I'd say they're rolling. They are rolling. So that game will be at
an advantage to do that too.
Yes.
Play a team in, so.
That game's at 4:00 on Friday or on Thursday. The 7:00 game on Thursday, praying the lights don't go out like they did a couple of years ago because the dome lights were on a timer. It is number 2 Lewis Central taking on number 1 Western Dubuque. Lewis Central defeats North Polk 31-5. 28 seniors on this North Polk team. Unfortunately, the season comes to the end, and they just met a phenomenal Lewis Central team that was really good in every sort of the way. Brady Hetzel, 208 yards and a touchdown. Camden Cross, 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lowell Maker, 6 catches, 96 yards. Lewis Central is a problem, man. I mean, they're very talented up front.
Yeah, I think they became that kind of inevitable team. Like they're just going to be good. They're
3 straight years now.
Now, I'm not comparing these two dynasties because I think we can safe to say Lewis Central is a dynasty at this point. They're like Dowling. Like every year, they're going to be good up front.
Yep.
They have a quarterback that's usually capable, and they're going to play good defense. It's going to happen every year. They're going to make it to the Dome, probably the championship. I know Dowling went on a 7 straight run, so not really comparable. But, I mean, Brady Hetzel is a very good quarterback, and I think he's only a junior. Like this, he's not going away. Granted, his help is kind of leaving. He's Owen Thomas, phenomenal linebacker. He's going to Lindenwood. He's gone. Well, Maker's been great all year. Camden Cross is a really good player. I think he plays both ways. So
but I hate to say it. I think this year we said the same thing. They lost a lot from last year. It didn't matter. I mean, they've regrouped really well. Like I said, 28 seniors on North Polk's roster. It's tough. I mean, sometimes you just get that big of a class, but BJ Tate comes back. He was the leading rusher in this game. Nathan Feldman, he comes back. He was the leading tackler in this game. So there's still upside to North Polk. It's a phenomenal season. But Lewis Central is on to the Class 4A title game for the 3rd straight year. Well, they will take on Western Dubuque, who defeats Bondurant 28-21. They rallied in this game. They were losing, came all the way back and won it. Grant Glosser had a day, 36 carries, 193 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I got to say, though, Paul, Bondurant, you have to give them a round of applause. They lost their starting quarterback, their starting running back, and their leading lineman didn't even play a snap all season. And they got all the way to the Dome and were 7 points away, 8 points technically, away from making it the state title. That's unbelievable.
And may I add that those 3 players, 2 of them are D1. Like 2 of them are like Titus Cram has been one of the best players for 3 years in the entire state. So it's phenomenal they got here. I'm sure the conversation in that school for the next 6 months is going to be, if we had Titus Cram, we're winning the state championship. That's probably.
I think they would have. Honestly, the way that they've played without him makes me think they probably would have.
Yeah, and the clear and effective part of their offense was rushing this game. They couldn't rush the ball. 2.5 yards per carry this game on 24 attempts, 60 total yards. Those are not good numbers. And when you're playing with the lead, I mean, that gets tough. It's going to be tough to just be able to hold on to that because you got to pass the ball. And, I mean, they showed they can pass. Props to Jordan Ryle, who's a junior, so he's coming back. Went off, honestly. 2 touchdowns, 15 for 24, 264 yards. And he was their leading rusher. I think that's what the problem is. So,
yeah. I'm curious, is Bondurant going to repeat in basketball this year? I haven't really looked at their basketball roster, but
they lost Collison.
Yeah.
Who was a dog. But I think they do have some guys back, so I'm not sure.
This sets up a really fun title game. Lewis Central stopped the run pretty well, and they stopped the pass as well. But Grant Glosser is not, what North Polk had in the rushing attack. And Tanner Anderson, the junior, actually had a pretty good game, 12 and 19, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. I picked Western Dubuque all the way back, and obviously I'll stay with it, but should be good. But I also see a world where Lewis Central takes care of business here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got to believe in Lewis Central here. Now, the problem is, I mean, Western Dubuque, they've already fought. I mean, you could be so shaky going down 14-0 to a 4 seed, just right off the gate, and they just battled back. Grant Glosser has been, like, ridiculous, like inhuman this year. He's literally puts up 200 yards, it feels like, every game with 2 touchdowns. So this is a hard game to pick. I have to stick with Lewis Central. I think their defense can probably limit Grant. It's a battle of the 2 corners of Iowa. Just battle the 2 sides.
Yeah,
which
you're right.
do we see that a lot? Is that a normal thing?
I feel like it doesn't happen a ton. Well, no, I mean technically because Xavier last year, but that's not far corner. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's close. The river to river, one of those cool matchups. So that game will take off 7 o'clock on Thursday night. We're on to the Friday games where, let me get to my thing. Van Meter will take on Central Lyon, George Little Rock. Van Meter defeats Monticello 35-21. Monticello led 21-20 in this game. Preston Reeves threw a 94-yard bomb to take the lead, and then Van Meter buckled back down. Austin Baumhover didn't have a great game, 7 of 12, 7 of 16, 82 yards, but Ben Gordon had a game, 33 carries, 207 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Van Meter is inevitable, and they get the job done again, but what a career for Monticello's Preston Reeves, man. What a way to go.
Yep. I mean, tough situation for him. Playing a team is always going to be balanced and going to have a good defense too. So very tough. But Ben Gordon, man, holy cow.
He's
Been good
unbelievable.
for how long? His entire career?
Yeah, I mean
6 yards,
he's been a player pretty much the whole time, yeah.
6 yards a carry and 258 yards on the ground for Van Meter. They pounded the ball and they got through. They also forced some turnovers, which is huge. But Preston Reese, great career, dude. Best all like dual threat quarterback ever. I think that's how you
Yeah.
put it.
Statistically, yes, he is the best that we've
Statistically,
ever seen.
obviously, Hunter Deckers is a pretty big name to live up to. But was it Deckers or was it Duggan? It was Deckers, right?
Deckers, yes, same Decker. So, or Hunter Deckers. Hunter Deckers, so it'd be Preston Reeves, Hunter Deckers, I think a kid from Marshalltown, and then I think Dallas Sauser's like number 4 all time, something like that.
Ooh, with
So,
rushing too.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't know
So,
Saucer had legs like that.
yeah. Well, I think it's combined too. I don't know. Well, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think it is. That's what the stat was, or whatever that we posted, or someone posted. It was like
We'll have to go back and do that sometime.
combined passing and rushing.
Van Meter will take on Central Lyon, who defeats Spirit Lake 28-14. You know, for a quarter, I was like, wow, my upset pick's going to work. And then Central Lyon sat up in the chair. Spirit Lake took a 14-0 lead, and Central Lyon scored 23 in the second quarter, would score one more time in the fourth to pull away. What a win for Central Lyon. Reese Vanderzee, 9 of 12, 84 yards in the air, 48 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. But it was Graham Eben who had the day. 26 carries, 170 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He also caught the ball 3 times for 23 yards. I mean, this is just Central Lyon. This is the Central Lyon that we've seen. By the way, Spirit Lake will be, like I said, one of the top teams in the state next year. Like, they're literally all juniors. I mean, they're going to come back. Lunt is a junior. Ditzworth's a junior. Stecker's a junior. Hendricks is a junior. So they're going to be very senior heavy, but they're going to be the team to beat next year. But Central Lyon, man, longest winning streak in the state, will face the other longest winning streak in the state.
Yeah, this will be a phenomenal game. We've talked about this since like week 2,
Week
I
1.
think. Yep. Big thing is Central Lyon is so good in the trenches. They're gonna put up rushing yards on you, and they're gonna also negate you from being able to rush the ball. They held Spirit Lake to 3 yards a carry and 85 yards, which is just phenomenal. They had 218 total yards and 5 yards a carry, along with 4 rushing touchdowns. Graham Eben and Reese Vandersee are like the best duo in the state, probably, especially in this class. So they've been phenomenal. I don't know my pick here for Van Meter Central Lyon. I mean, this is probably the most like anticipated championship just because it's been all year. We've kind of had a feeling. I like Central Lyon. I've doubted them, I feel like, every single time in these situations, and they just come out and prove me wrong. So I like Central Lyon here.
I'll still stick with my Van Meter thing. I still think it's going to be phenomenal. Van Meter has to pass the ball. I mean, Baumhover's going to have to really get going, him on the ground and in the air as well. You can't just stay one-dimensional with Ben Gordon. So I think if they do that, you're in a good spot. Van Meter held Preston Reeves tightly knit. I mean, 92 yards rushing, but still should be a phenomenal game. Someone's winning streaks going down, and Central Lyon could possibly continue it running. So it's going to be a fun one for the Class 2A title game at 10 o'clock on Friday. We go on to the Class 3A title game. Bishop Heelan defeats Creston 16-13. What a game. Quinn Olson really wasn't amazing. 4 of 13, 34 yards passing, 67 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. Ricky Futo, 16 carries, 99 yards, 1 touchdown. And you know what's crazy, Paul? You look at the stats. Creston, Cale Turner goes 24 of 35 for 253 yards and a touchdown. Brennan Hayes goes 26 carries, 139 yards and a touchdown. And they lost 16-13.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a weird box score. 390 total yards of offense for Creston, so 120 more than Bishop Heelan, and it was in a close game, and it just didn't matter, I guess. Weird. I mean, 6 yards a carry for Bishop Heelan, if you really want to look into that. But overall, it's just kind of an interesting. Both had a fumble, right? I'm pretty sure both teams had a fumble. So
I think so. Bishop Heelan was bigger up front. I mean, that was the one thing that I noticed right away. Like, they were pretty good. They had a good size up front, no doubt.
yeah, a big thing I guess you can point out is Creston was 0-4 on the 4th down. That's kind of huge. They also missed 2 field goals, so there you go.
That's a big one. Yeah. But nonetheless, a good win for Bishop Heelan. How do you evaluate this season for Creston, Paul? I mean, they were the team. They were the team. I mean, everybody liked them. Beat Nevada, took care of Harlan twice in 2 phenomenal games, beat Lewis Central, and then they come up short in the semifinals. Ironically, to Bishop Heelan, who has nipped them before at the Dome. Senior heavy, just kind of, they just couldn't get it done at the end.
I feel like for any student that goes there, it's definitely sad because they're senior heavy. That's they definitely had a this is the year type mentality there.
Yeah.
But they're gonna look back and probably say they didn't. This was not like a sad moment. That team went undefeated throughout the regular season, had multiple wins against teams that were had beat them well in the past. So Central was huge. They beat Harlan, Nevada. Yeah. So it was a great season for them, and Cale Turner was a dog all year. Brennan Hayes was a dog. It was just ran into a team that's been good. It's like a dynasty type team, and those triple option teams, especially in lower classes, dude, they don't very hard to beat, especially in the Dome. It feels like so.
Yeah. I don't know. One of those crazy games. They will take on Williamsburg, who defeats Solon 45-14. This game was close last time they met. 21-14, Solon won. I'm telling you, man, you don't want to beat the team the first time around because then you have the disadvantage. And Williamsburg, there's really no other words for it other than this seems like the year. Derek Wieskop, who, oh, by the way, started the year at linebacker / wide receiver. I don't know if Kellen Cockrell's hurt. I don't know the whole backstory. But Derek Wieskop comes in and throws 12 of 19, 366 yards and 4 touchdowns. They don't even look at the ground game. They didn't even try, really. Race Heitman is the man to watch in the state of Iowa. He is now the new Cooper DeJean in my eyes. Race goes 6 catches, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He runs for 2 yards and a touchdown. He had 15 tackles, 2 sacks, and 1 interception. He literally did everything possible in the win on Friday night on the win on Saturday versus Solon. I don't know what else to say, man. The Williamsburg defense picked off Tyler Bell 6 times, and they forced 2 fumbles. 8 turnovers by Solon. Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, 8. It's a padlock stat there, dude. 8 turnovers. I don't think you can win. I don't think it's possible to win a game with 8 turnovers.
Yeah, I don't think so. It felt like every drive there for a little bit, Solon either fumbled or turned it over. Like, I think it was like 3 or 4 straight drives. It was just either fumble, pick, whatever. I mean, they were everywhere.
Yeah, I'm happy with this for Williamsburg because we made the grave mistake of when they lost their first game. We were like, oh, maybe they just aren't that good. Maybe there's other teams in this class that are better even. And yikes, that's not going to age well. So Williamsburg is back to kind of that team that we all were thinking they were when it was like week 6, and we were like, this team could hang with 4A teams pretty easily. Race Heiden's ridiculous. You said it, and Weiskopf. This team's loaded.
It's
Names-wise, this
unbelievable.
team's loaded. Going to be a very hard win for Bishop Heelan to get.
That's what I was just about to say. Poor Bishop Heelan. They're good. And I think size-wise, they can match up with Williamsburg. But that offense is not putting up 45. Like, that offense put up, 61 or 62 against MOC Floyd Valley. But Williamsburg is just a whole nother beast. But, Paul, we fell into this trap before. Williamsburg has looked good last year against Wahlert Catholic. And they felt like they were the team to beat when they got to the title game. And then they just couldn't do anything. And they fell short against Central Lyon.
To be fair, that Central Lyon team had
yes. Zach Lutmer was unbelievable. But I think, I'm going to roll with my original pick was Williamsburg. This is finally the year Williamsburg brings home a championship in football.
Yep. I think Williamsburg gets it done. There's a chance this gets ugly. I'm not going to lie for Bishop Heelan. It's a very converging style. It's a team that can bomb it. Williamsburg can really frat. If they're going to win, I think if Williamsburg wins, it's going to be a thrash. I think they win.
You have to think Kel Turner almost threw for 250 against Bishop Heelan's defense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's another thing. Did you see Race Heitman's catch?
I did not, but
the corner of the end zone. First of all, Wieskamp literally threw it up man, Race has got to be down there somewhere. and Race, back shoulder adjust, toe taps. It is one of the best catches I think I've ever seen. This kid's a junior. He's going to lead Williamsburg next year. He's probably going to play quarterback somehow next year. But I can't wait to see where he goes to college.
Cockrell's a junior.
Is Cockrell a junior too?
I believe so. So
okay.
I'm assuming that's his job next year. But
so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But what a year for Williamsburg. We'll see if they can cap it off. We'll go to Paul's favorite class in Class 5A. We'll start out with Southeast Polk and Valley. Paul, I've done a lot of talking. Let's have you start the conversation. Tell me about Southeast Polk and Valley.
Oh, this was a phenomenal game. We knew Valley is the one team you just never want to play in this type of situation. They love being the team that no one thinks is going to win. They get down early again, and I was literally going, wow, it's going to happen again. They're going to get down 14-0, and then they're just going to storm back. Damon Head, one of the best running backs in 5A, just putting the team on his back. And Drake, the group, he looked good.
Yeah, he does.
He's only a sophomore. That dude didn't dress until week 4.
He was on the JV roster.
He was on the JV roster. So, phenomenal showing from him. But, hey, Southeast Polk gets it done. CJ Phillip playing on a broken toe. Apparently that's a mythic thing. He's a mythic player. 3 touchdowns, 131 yards. Carson Robbins, 3 receptions, 102 yards, and a touchdown. Obviously, that first play was huge.
That was the big one.
Yep. Moberly, pretty good game from him. That pick, that was kind of a good ball. Just great play by Jay Gregory.
He played out of his mind.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
We've been waiting for that kind of all year for him to just take a huge step in. It looks like it happened to the playoffs. Similar with Zay last year, how he just emerged in the playoffs. So they're so young at that school, and I feel like in every sport, which is just scary.
It gives me, a little goosebumps because that's how good. It's literally set up like basketball. Yes, basketball, they kind of stunned the state and won last year, and you're like, oh, they ain't losing anybody. But this year in football, it's like you made it. Now, next year, there's no excuse. Go out and win games and make it to the postseason as a top 5 seed. Don't start slow like you did this year. Make it easy on yourself because you got the team to do it.
We got to remember they got absolutely ravaged with injuries they had.
Yes, that too.
It's phenomenal they made the dome without 2 quarterbacks. They're calling the Vikings at this point. They're literally Vikings. They had 2 missing quarterbacks just start the year. They have to live with that. They start off 1-4. Just don't lose the rest of the year. But
I don't see Gary leaving either. I'm pretty sure Swenson will stay again. And I think, run it back.
Now, granted, we talked a lot about Valley. Southeast Polk, great job. I knew right when it went to overtime. I was like, this game.
I think I can't remember. Oh, it was 2 weeks ago on the broadcast with Cedar Falls when I was calling that game. and Cedar Falls was going to 2, and someone was like, "Why are they going for 2?" I'm like, "Dude, you're never beating this Southeast Polk team. You're never beating them in overtime. It is. I feel like it is impossible." When Dowling went to overtime with them, I'm like, "It's over." Dowling took like 5 plays to get in the end zone. You're like, Southeast Polk can do it in a play. Like they have the offense to do that. And when Valley took the field goal, you're just like, this thing's over. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah, it's I know the big thing is, why did Valley not go for 2 there? We saw them do it last year in this same situation to upset a 1 seed.
I'm
They're
curious.
shoot
Give me your analyst. Why did they not go for 2? Why do you think
they're
because it worked
50%.
last year.
Yeah, they're 50% on conversions this year. For 2-point, they've only done it 4 times. I'd have to look in stats last year. Were they a big go for 2 type team? There's a lot of things that goes into that decision as a coach. You can't just kind of become a fan there and say, well, it's obvious you go for 2, because maybe he just had a package he liked in overtime. There's a lot of things. Damon Head was working, so there's kind of a similar Southeast Polk thing where they feel like they can gain yards to the ground. But obviously, I mean, it's tough. A lot of the people are watching it with were saying, why would you not go for 2 here? But hey, I mean, you still had the chance to go in overtime and score
The
all. They settled for a field goal, and right there, I'm like, it's
it's
brutal.
over.
The biggest, I would have gone for a touchdown on the overtime. I would have gone.
In some ways, they should have gone for it on 4th down. Yeah, I mean, because you just knew there's no way. Like even if you sacked Moberly on 1st down, we have seen Southeast Polk has got to be one of the best teams on 2nd and 3rd and long situations. I mean, they're just perfect at it, and just that whole drive going downfield, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is deja vu of last year. This is like the exact scenario. Valley goes downfield against Dowling, scores. And then I think in that moment, everyone was stunned they went for 2. Because when you and I were on the sidelines, I think we even looked at, we're like, what in the world? Like, they're going for the win. Like, Valley doesn't care. Granted, they lost to Dowling 42-0 earlier in the season. So what do you got to lose? But I think also Southeast Polk in some ways was probably expecting them going for 2 as well. So that's another thing.
Yeah, the only thing I'm looking at the stats from last season. I mean, they only went for 2-point conversions twice that year. So,
Gary was a madman. What can we say?
yeah, I mean, maybe it has something to do with receiver talent. That year they had Zay and Aiden Price.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said there. I mean, they had better playmakers a little bit last year. They had Bryce Anderson. So I don't know. It's a tough call. It's obviously one of those you look back and you can say the opposite circumstance would have been better. Would be the same, I'm sure, if he went for 2 and they don't get it. Tons of people going, well, why didn't you go for 2? Just settle for overtime. So lose. Sucks, but
and Southeast Polk wins another 3-point game. How many
yeah.
is that?
Is it going to come back and bite them? That's the big
We
question.
keep saying that, but it never does. It sets up. We should have known. We should have known this would be the title game because of all time. It makes sense. It's a rivalry at this point. Southeast Polk takes on Ankeny, who defeats Ankeny Centennial 10-7. One quick thing. My well wishes are with Elijah Porter. That is just the most unfortunate situation you could ever have happen. If you didn't know, Elijah Porter was on the bus headed to the Dome and apparently was really not feeling well, was very sick. They got to the Unidome and they took him straight to the hospital. He did not play. Braden Jackson had a great game in his absence, 27 carries, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown. But Paul, that Ankeny team and Coach Bauer, they're just a very gritty bunch.
Yeah, this Bauer coaching, this Bauer first year needs to be studied by every coach because holy cow, I don't know how he did this, but I mean, he's a generational mind. I knew that when he was there as an assistant. He's been kind of just a phenomenal coach from there on out. I mean, Centennial just turned into Iowa this game. No offense to the Hawkeyes, but 3 picks, missed field goals. I mean, Ankeny let them in this. This should have been
So many chances.
17-7 or at least like 20-7. They let him in it, and Centennial has a shot there. Braden Jackson, that corner end zone ball, I think there's a chance he comes down with that. Just kind of lost where he was at. Great. I mean, though I love the game. I thought it was a good game because of Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial and stuff like that. But I get watching this game from the outside, you're like, what is going on?
Oh.
Yeah, this is disgusting. So
I I will say I hope Ryan Bendazoo got. I know it wasn't pretty. I know it. His life has not been fun. Probably the last 48 hours or whatnot. You missed 3 field goals in the state semifinals, and you missed the chance to go to the tie. I hope he doesn't beat himself up too hard because there are many things in that game that could have changed. And Ryan's a junior, and I hope he comes back just as strong next year. I hope he goes and kicks game-winning field goals next year because he's a phenomenal kid. I'm sure of it. But it just stinks, it happens. Sometimes it's just tough, and sometimes things don't work out your way. And 3 missed field goals for Centennial was a big reason why they could not get it done. Trenton Smith, 13 of 28, 138 yards. Braden Jackson, who I said phenomenal. I mean, 100 carries or 100 yards, 27 carries, 1 touchdown. This Ankeny team, though, they found ways. And they knew that Hankus was going to be an issue, and they forgot about Evan Erlmeyer. And that was a big, big difference. 3 catches, 65 yards for him as well. And Daniel Larmy as well.
Yeah, Daniel Larmy is a dog as well. I mean, you get outgained by 100 yards, and you still come out with the win. And turnovers do that to you. So
3 picks.
what a crazy game. That defense on Ankeny is scary for Southeast Polk. They take the ball away quite a bit, and they're solid in the run game too. They kind of have a weird thing where they stand like 2 feet away from the ball when it's snapped because there's something about how fast their front 7 is. But it'll be interesting, this game. I mean, this has been for the past 4 years, 3 out of 4. We've seen this matchup in the Dome, and one time Ankeny just thrashed Southeast Polk. The second time, Southeast Polk pretty much thrashed Ankeny. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens if we are talking about Ankeny winning a state championship. I mean,
59-20 thrashing in week 4.
not even. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost their best playmaker. They lost another really good running back in Jason Williams. They lost a bunch on defense. I mean, they just come back and are fine. They lost a lot of great offensive linemen too. They lost Joe Kingston. They lost Drew Monsovit. It's a crazy. I don't know. This is one of those where you'd almost think it's like a private school, the way they just came back and they're good without even.
I think it's just kids who rallied behind a head coach that they knew not many people were picking them. Nobody picked them to win. And I go back to that week 1 game. If Ankeny lost to Ankeny Centennial, I think the whole season changes. I don't think Ankeny's the team that they are. But the fact that they got that win in week 1, and I know it sounds stupid to say week 1 was the difference maker, but I think week 1 was the difference maker, that you won that game and everyone's like, okay, you can do this. You can win games like this. I think that's a big difference maker. And realistically for Southeast Polk, it's pretty simple. You're not playing the same Ankeny team you played in week 3 or week 4. This is an Ankeny team that is playing insanely good on defense. Like their defense, what'd they hold Dowling to? 10, 7, something like that?
They held them to 7. And it
7?
was like 3 yards of play, 4 yards of play.
Held Ankeny Centennial to 7. Held Johnston to
9.
10.
9.
Something like that. I mean, this defense is playing out of their minds. And again, Southeast Polk gets Ankeny at a bad time. I don't know, man. What do you think? What happens this game? Can Ankeny pull the upset? Ankeny was the last team to beat them.
They can definitely pull the upset off. I think that defense can take the ball away at a high rate. And I think that's the kind of, I hate to say that's the only way that I see that going for Ankeny if they win, is if that defense takes the ball away. And I think they can. They can definitely get some interceptions because Moberly, he's a great quarterback, but we've seen it happen before. He throws some picks sometimes. Not that that's like a constant, but that's something that it can happen in games. We've seen them be in tons of close games this year. There's no question that this could be a 7-point game heading into the 4th quarter. So the big thing for me is how can Ankeny run the ball? That front 7 of Southeast Polk is very good. I know Damon had just had a great day on it, but Dravin Woods, Mason Vanderbrink and all those guys are just very hard to beat. You can maybe poke holes in that Southeast Polk secondary as well. I know Devin Akers and Evan Ermeyer are very good tandem, so it's going to be a very good game. I like my Hawks. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be phenomenal. I think it's going to be a phenomenal football game. Here's hoping that it's closer than it's been the last 2 years. When Southeast Polk wins titles, they tend to dominate. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we haven't had a close 5A title game in a while, realistically, 5A/4A. So, we're working on it. We'll try to get it there. I think it'll be a phenomenal game. Either way, no matter what happens, Ankeny will have a ton of upside for next season. Anderson's coming back. Laramie's coming back. Erlmeyer's coming back. So there is going to be a lot to look forward to for Ankeny. And for Southeast Polk, I mean, this is it. The three-peat is on the line, trying to become a team to three-peat, one of few to three-peat in the highest class that there is here in the state of Iowa. And I think Zelenovich and his guys are going to be ready. It's going to be a phenomenal football game. I can't wait to watch it. It will be at 7 o'clock. It's the primetime final matchup of the week on Friday, November 17th at 7 o'clock. All these championship games, by the way, I think can be caught on Fox 17. So if you have Channel 17, I am pretty sure you can watch these games. I am not entirely sure, but I am pretty sure that they're on Fox 17. If not, obviously you just go onto the IHSSN app and you can watch from there. Have to pay for it, but you can watch it. So it's going to be a fun Thursday and Friday. We're going to crown 7 state champions, 7 names of schools etched into the record books. It's going to be a fun one. Paul, thanks for joining me. We will be back next week to recap everything, and then we're going to give out our awards to end the season out, and then we take a break from football for a week to celebrate Thanksgiving, and then we're right back into basketball, and you already know we'll have Bound to Talk basketball set up. Paul and I will be watching these games. I'm headed to Denver to watch the Broncos play on Sunday Night Football, so I will be watching from my car ride. But it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, well, I'm excited, man. We made it all the way through the season.
We did it.
It's a long one, but we did.
We did it. Shout out to everyone who's watched.
We made a lot of Barstools. We made a lot of Barstool posts. We
were everywhere on Barstool this past week.
We made a hype video.
Barstool.
We made a hype video.
What hype video did we make?
Valley Barstool made a hype video. We were talking about that.
Oh, maybe I heard a different one. I can't remember. One I heard it was us on it. Maybe it was the Valley one. I can't remember. Yeah. It's nice that we're the inspiration for these guys. Truly great. Truly great. I love getting terrible messages on Twitter when I choose not the right team. It's terrible. Awful. Do something with your lives, please. All right. Well, I'm Blake Walker. He's Paul Ayers. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening to Bound to Talk Football. We will see everyone next week to talk about your state champions. Thanks for watching. See you later.